What's up, YouTube? This is your girl, Megan. Welcome back to the Hood Astro Queen, to all of my returning subscribers. However, if this is your first time joining me on today, hit that subscribe button because you know you want to. And today I'm doing another celebrity birth chart reading on Solange Knowles. She is the little sister to Beyonce Knowles Carter. And she's been in the industry for a while now. However, she's only recently kind of getting her just due and notoriety. But I've been following her since way back, like in 03, 04, when she was collabing with Lil Romeo. So it's definitely been a long time coming. She's grown as an artist, as a person, and she has absolutely managed to kind of find her own lane aside from her sister. So it's really cool. I actually really like her as an artist. Much like her sister, I don't know that much about her, like just as a person, as an individual. However, it did hit headlines today that she had separated from her husband, Alan Ferguson. So it definitely prompted me to just look into her birth chart and do an overall or a generalized birth chart reading. So without further ado, let's get started. So Solange Knowles was born on June 24th, 1986 in Houston, Texas. And with her being born on the 24th, this could deal with her being very blessed, okay? 24s typically can be very, very gifted, and they get a lot of blessings or receive a lot of installation by way of their family. And you could even look at this as, of course, her being born into a dynasty of sorts, being born a Carter, or not a Carter, Knowles, so to speak. So, yeah, her having that type of bloodline. Now, she's a Cancer sun, Aquarius Moon, and her sun is at the second degree. So her being a Cancer sun absolutely deals with her having a strong attachment to family and even being someone who was meant to be a mother in this lifetime, especially with her sun at that second degree. The number 2 does deal with family. So kind of even reinforcing this theme or compounding on her being a 24 birth number, because, the number 2 is kind of like a very prominent energy signature in her life. It's also dealing with her being very close to her son. It could even deal with her being very overprotected. She's probably like a helicopter mom. And this made me think about an interview that I saw a long time ago that she did where she said, like, nobody was allowed to discipline her children. Not even the grandmother. Like, nobody was allowed to spank her son. Also, her being a Cancer sun can deal with her having creative gifts endowed upon her by her ancestors. It could also give her a very strong connection to her roots, her homeland, or her hometown. And she does represent Texas and pay homage to Houston, Texas every chance she gets, especially by way of her most recent album. I think it's called Homecoming or something. And she had like an ode to Texas on there. And she incorporated a lot of different themes, like musical influences from Texas or from Houston rather, like the chop and screw sound. She really loves where she's from, and she wears that on her shoulder. She wears that on her back. It could also deal with her being very connected to her race. And I could see that also with just within her body of work, because she's kind of evolved into this very like socially conscious person. And even the album before this most recent one, which was A Seat at the Table, it was a critically acclaimed album that everyone loved. And it incorporated a lot of different elements of like, consciousness and pro-Black awareness type of teas, That's the whole concept of the album, A Seat at the Table, where Black people can exist and coexist. And, so she's very much for her people, you know what I'm saying? She absolutely embraces where she's from, and in return, her ancestors reward her for that handsomely. So there's that. Also, with her sun forming a quincunx to her Saturn and Sagittarius, this could even make her so attached to home or such a homebody that she probably doesn't like to travel when it comes to work, or maybe it's kind of like a hassle or annoying for her to like get up and go whenever she has business obligations. But you can even look at this aspect as her being either too idealistic in relationships, or maybe business interfering in her marriage. That's another way you can look at it, but we're going to get deeper into the dynamics of her marriage later on. But you can also even look at this quincunx between her Cancer Sun and Saturn and Sagittarius. It's her not liking white people. Like, she could have certain prejudices against different groups of people. So, I thought that was pretty interesting. Her sun is trining her Pluto, which is at the 4th degree of Scorpio, which deals with her receiving a lot of support by way of her father, especially even like husbands too. She can attract men who can really support her. And she could even be that same pillar of support for her own son. Now, her sun is also opposing her Neptune, which deals with her being very sensitive about her image, but also deceptive too. I do feel like Solange puts forth a lot of effort into making things appear to be one way when they are completely different behind the scenes. That's kind of like a pervading theme in her chart. And this could definitely set her up for scandals. Like, for instance, the elevator scandal when she beat the shit out of Jay-Z. And the elevator footage came out. So things being done in private that kind of shockingly make its way publicly. Now, she's an Aquarius Moon, which deals with her being very eccentric, futuristic, abstract, even being the type of person to march to the beat of her own drum, deviating from the path, or any type of given path, as this placement produces a person who is not concerned with maintaining the decency of the status quo. Okay, her moon sign could even deal with her being a humanitarian with a large following on social media. This could also deal with her believing in metaphysical or futuristic type of concepts, such as astrology even, or numerology. So, by the way, if you need an astrologer girl, you're watching this video, Solange, hit me up. I got you. All right. This could also point towards her having very quirky eating habits, such as like being a vegan or, vegetarian, paleo, or things of that nature. And she's prone to have sudden changes in her diet, sudden drastic changes in her diet. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, this placement can also produce a very sensitive stomach, or an influx of like digestive issues, I guess you could say, which is very funny because I believe that during her most recent marriage, I forgot when they got married, but I think there was a story about how she got sick or something, and she was throwing up everywhere after the reception. Y'all drop down in the comments, clarify that for me. But I think I read something about that, but I'm not sure. Now, her moon is squaring her Pluto, which deals with her having a strained relationship with her mother, y'all. I think it could stem from her feeling either misunderstood. That could have also been a level of emotional detachment that she felt from Tina Knowles growing up. And it could also make Tina Knowles controlling, or someone who is just kind of like an opportunist, for lack of a better word. She could have even felt like her mother resented her. This aspect can also cause deep-rooted psychological trauma that can bring forth a lot of self-destructive behaviors, including even like abuse at its very worst. Her being the type of person who can really almost like a boiling point, like her reaching a boiling point, taking a lot of pressure, taking a lot of high pressure situations to where she erupts and can go crazy, or even go into like a state of psychosis or something like that. But there's something that's going on with her behavioral or her emotional patterns that are very disrupted, and it kind of falls into this line of issues of mental illness that I do see in her chart. Her moon is also opposing her Venus, which deals with her not being fully comfortable with being famous in the traditional sense, It can also pose as potential issues relating to women. And these could be issues that stem from the dynamic in the relationship that she has with her mother. And this aspect also further reinforces her living, like her having a very interesting living arrangement when it comes to her partner. I'm getting the feel that they live separately, or they lived in two different spaces. Like she lived one place, and then I think her husband, Alan, whatever his name is, lived somewhere else. It could also even just point towards her enjoying shocking people by switching up her music too. Now, her Cancer, or her Mercury, is in the sign of Cancer. That is at the 29th degree. Of course, the anaretic degree. But this placement deals with her being empathetic and very, very psychic, extremely creative, and an excellent songwriter and storyteller. Which she's been writing songs or writing music for a minute. She even started out writing music for Beyonce. And especially with her Mercury forming a trine to her Saturn, this could actually make her like a career songwriter, you know, her having a very viable profession in that, her having a natural gift, a natural skill at being a songwriter. This Mercury in Cancer at the 29th degree can also bring about issues with family, issues that involve a lot of tension, low self-esteem, her even being in competition. So you can even look at that, especially with Mercury dealing with siblings, her being in competition with Beyonce, okay? Her feeling extremely insecure. This could also deal with her being extremely emotionally driven and can come to a snapping point, especially when she's passionate about something, and definitely when it pertains to family. And it can denote a level of violence or anger management issues. And so once again, think back to that elevator incident with Jay-Z. Now, it's alleged that that night that he was caught cheating on Beyonce, or they ran up on one of his side pieces or whatever, and she just got so upset that she was able to just, you know, hop over her boundaries as the sister-in-law and be like, look, sis, you're not going to do nothing. I'm about to kick this nigga ass for you type thing. Very Cancer Mercury at that 29th degree. Okay. Her Mercury is also squaring her Pluto, which deals with, or just kind of reinforces this theme of subtle sibling rivalry, even jealousy. And it could also point towards Solange having the tendency to come out very strong when it comes to her ideas and thought processes, to the point where it's like anybody who doesn't agree with the way that she feels can be a prime target for overt or covert manipulation tactics. She can be very manipulative with this placement. Also, her Mercury is opposing her Mars, which reinforces this level of cognitive dissonance in the form of having Beyonce as an elder sister. So it's just kind of like you love your sister, but there could also come a need to feel like you have to compete with that. Compete with her accomplishments, compete with her achievements, compete with her legacy. Feeling the need to even compete with her after she started rising in fame. This aspect can also point towards Solange feeling at odds between embracing the love that she has for her sister and like being okay with that, versus the need to, or the urge to fight for her own sense of respect within the industry, because that's encompassed by her Mars in Capricorn. That's all about, you know, fame and, like I said, respect, the way people in your particular career field view you, your face card, you know, defending your face card to the point where it's like, okay, well, I'm more than Beyonce's sister. I am someone. Her Mars is also forming a sextile to her Jupiter, which is at the 22nd degree of Pisces. And this deals with her having fame in the music industry seemingly overnight with that 22nd degree, because that number 22 can bring about instant change. This aspect can also reinforce her being a spiritualist, as well as her having very profound ancestral connections. It can make her very creative and abstract in her art and the art that she puts out. This could also deal with her having love for creating art with the body, which in one of her videos, she was actually pole dancing. And that's very much an art. So that definitely embodies that energy. Her Neptune is sexiling her Pluto in Capricorn, and both are at the 4th degree. And the very interesting thing about the number 4 is that it's almost like a magnet for success and for manifestation. Okay. So this aspect can absolutely point towards her or reinforce this theme of her receiving a lot of support, a lot of success. And even you can look at this as her being born into a dynasty, as I said before, especially with that number 4 energy there. Her Venus is in Leo, so it deals with her attracting men in the entertainment industry. I think her husband, the one she's separating from now, was a director or something of that effect. But this could also deal with her having lifelong issues with men. Okay, it could deal with her attracting men with money and value. And especially with his son, her husband's son is conjoined to her Venus. So she could have even gotten married for financial reasons. Obviously, I don't think she's broke simply by the fact that you're Beyonce's sister. And she has kind of, made her own accomplishments in her lifetime. But you can tell money and status and power, even if it's just power, are very important things to her when she's dealing with men. But her Venus in Leo can also deal with her attracting men who cheat. Okay. And Leo is a very athletic sign. And I believe her first child, well, she only has one child, but her son's father, she was dealing with him back in like the early 2000s. I think he's an athlete. So that still is very much in that same vein as Venus and Leo. She could also, or this placement could also deal with her, attracting a man or being with a man to where having children is an issue. So, I mean, it can go either way, whether she wants children and he doesn't, or he wants children and she doesn't. But with her moon opposing her Venus, I'm actually more inclined to feel like she was the one who didn't want children. So, also, her Venus is squaring her Pluto, which absolutely points towards cheating being an issue within that marriage, okay? There could have also been some power struggles, definitely dysfunction. And, I mean, in extreme cases, this aspect can bring about abuse, I'm being honest. And primarily on her end, I'm feeling like. I could be wrong. It could be the other way around, okay? But I feel like they've gotten physical before. Her Mars is at the 21st degree of Capricorn, which deals with her being a hard worker, having a drive for success, and just taking her job very seriously. She could also subscribe to a rather minimalistic lifestyle unless she's more materialistic. But I get the vibe that I don't know. She can kind of be either way, y'all. Y'all drop down in the comments. What do y'all think? Do y'all think Solange is a materialistic type of Capricorn Mars? Or do you think she might be one of those, like, oh, I got to cut down on the things that I have in my life type people? I don't know. It could go either way, though. However, nonetheless, this placement could give her a love for antiques and history, which does deal with a lot of her music. Well, back in the day, like 2010, 2008, 2007, she put out a lot of music that had this very classic sound to it, almost like Motown. And I don't know if she was like following the trend of like the Amy Winehouses and whatnot, but that could absolutely, deal with that Capricorn influence, because Capricorn loves history and things that are vintage and antiques. So there's that. Her Capricorn Mars could even deal with her dating older men. And her husband, the one she's separating from now, is like, he was born in 1963. Like, he's hella older than she is. Also, with her Capricorn Mars being retrograde, this could deal with her really internalizing this sense of pessimism and depression. So she probably does suffer from that big time. And it puts me in the mind of that song that she put out, Cranes in the Sky, where she was speaking to depression. So I feel like she really does have mental health issues, especially with her Mars opposing her Mercury, to where she can even get just lost in her feelings and stuff like that, overcome by emotions. And so, there's that. Her Jupiter is at the 22nd degree of Pisces, which does give her a very heightened sense of creativity. It gives her an interest in esoteric knowledge and can make her very, very spiritual. And I think in one of her songs, she was talking about Florida water and, everything needs attention. So she's very much like I said, she believes in a lot of those like futuristic, quote unquote, type of or alternative kind of belief systems. Her Jupiter at the 22nd degree of Pisces can also deal with her desiring long distance escapes, so she might like the vacation or islands and stuff like that, where she feels kind of secluded. It could also deal with her being like a hippy dippy chick, very kind hearted, charitable, self-sacrificing even on the behalf of others. However, with her Pisces or her Jupiter in Pisces squaring her Chiron, I feel like there's something to that. And I don't want to call it artificial, but to my point that I was making earlier, I do feel like she can be very deceptive and putting on airs. There's a lot of things about Solange that the public may never know. I also feel like this aspect definitely supports her having some sort of mental illness. It could also deal with her having addiction problems as well. So I don't know if it's drinking, if it's smoking, but she definitely has the propensity to get caught up in vices. This could absolutely also deal with her being exposed or liable to get caught up in scandal as well. Now, her Jupiter is squaring her Uranus, which reinforces her being a maverick or a rebel of some sort. Like I said, a very eccentric, quirky personality, very progressive, and her being a risk taker, a thrill seeker, and someone who is just outside of the box, right? She thinks outside of the box, and that's what she's known for. I also want to mention, or I forgot to mention, that her Venus forming a sextile to her Chiron and Gemini reinforces her being an exceptional songwriter as well. And then finally, we get to her lunar nodal placements, and she's a Libra South Node. And that Libra South Node deals with her coming from past life or early life experiences where she's had to hide out in partnerships, where she's had to play the supporting role in somebody else's show, which we all know, especially with her Mercury squaring her North Node, is her being Beyonce's sibling, her living in the shadows instead of really stepping into her own sense of identity. This Libra South Node can also deal with her being the type to be over compromising, being the peacemaker, putting other people's needs before hers, and also just being kind of codependent. And that could even speak to the nature of a lot of her relationships, her romantic relationships. So even if you look at it from that lens, she's actually kind of, I don't want to say meant to be single in this lifetime, but she's naturally going to have a very challenging or a very difficult time being in relationships because they represent, because Libra is the sign of relationships, so they naturally represent a part of her that she's supposed to kind of outgrow in this lifetime. But with her Aries North Node, this deals with her having a karmic duty to step out as the star of her own show and prioritize her own goals and be comfortable in the skin that she's in. And you know what I'm saying? Kind of trailblaze her own path and even expressing her own anger and not being afraid to fight. All of that is that Aries North Node. And honestly, if you ask me, I feel like she's living up to that, especially after her career or since her career has taken this turn to where she's receiving a lot of this positive reinforcement. I think the album Seat at the Table did exceptionally well. Now, the album after that, I don't know. A lot of people were kind of thrown off by that. But like I said, she does like to switch up her style with that moon opposing Venus. But nonetheless, I do feel like she's managed to carve her own niche, her own lane for herself. And as I stated, with her Mercury squaring her North Node, this deals with this can speak to that conflict and tension, or maybe the insecurity that exists surrounding having Beyonce for a sister, which could have potentially kept her, or it could keep her from fully embracing her own sense of ingenuity. And this is something that she definitely has to overcome. And it's going to be a lifelong challenge with the square. But the good thing about squares is a lot of successful people have squares in their chart, or a surplus of squares in their chart. So squares do, even though they are areas of tension and stress, and they can cause a lot of psychological or even circumstantial trauma, they are learning opportunities. And like I said, I feel like as of yet, she's mastered that. But once again, it's a lifelong struggle. It's something that she's going to have to kind of learn how to balance for the rest of her life. Walking that fine line between being her own person and then like, oh, I'm Beyonce's sister type of thing. So yeah. And then really quick before I end this reading, I'm not going into Alan Ferguson's chart ad nauseum, because honestly, I don't give a fuck about who he is and what he has going on in his life. But I did want to go over a few aspects that could point towards the issues in their relationship. So with that being said, Alan was born on August 5th, 1963 in Richmond, Virginia, making him a Leo Sun, Aquarius Moon. So he shares the same moon sign as Solange. And as I stated before, his sun is conjoined to her Venus, which, I mean, it could also deal with him being or giving her creative ideas, them collaborating creatively, especially as it pertains to her music and her career and the kind of the direction that she, took herself in her career. Also, okay, doubling down on the whole concept of them having issues in their marriage, his Mars is at the 5th degree of Libra. That number 5 can deal with somebody who is reckless when it comes to like sexual activity, so to speak. But his Mars in Libra, especially in a male's chart, can point towards somebody who is very much preoccupied with like where the grass is greener type of thing. So always focused on what everybody else is doing, and can kind of even get caught up in that mode of indecisiveness that comes with Libra, especially when you feel like you have so many good options to choose from. So once again, a man with Mars and Libra could be the type of person to be around a magnitude of attractive women. And it's like, okay, yeah, I got the woman of my dreams now, but let me just sample this other chick just to make sure, everything, like I said, the grass ain't greener over there. Let me just try that out. Let me just do whatever. And it could absolutely produce a lot of infidelity. Even with him being a Leo sun, especially with his sun conjoining his Venus representing women, he could be the type of guy who is kind of turned off by the monotony that comes along with like everyday marriage. Okay. Or like, your traditional marriage. And not to mention, can be easily swayed by his ego or by attention, especially if he's not receiving the attention that he feels like he deserves within his marriage, And then his Venus is squaring his Neptune, which is at the 12th degree of Scorpio. So this could absolutely produce a relationship filled with infidelity and secrets, okay? Same thing with his moon squaring his Neptune. So, I mean, he was probably into some other shit, It just is what it is. And yeah, so either way it goes, I feel like that relationship definitely had some challenges associated with it. Okay? So